ASUS's ZenBook is one of those rare examples where a laptop tries to cram as much as possible into a single body in a single generation. Sounds familiar? Well, both of you might have something in common. You're both overachievers. Now, that usually is a good thing, at least in the instances of laptops. So let's have a look at the latest iteration of the ASUS ZenBook 14 OLED. This configuration right here is rocking Intel's i7 1360p series processor. We also have 16 gigabytes of LPDDR5 memory on board. Past that, we do have a reasonably large 1 terabyte SSD. Additionally, we have Intel's integrated Iris Xe graphics. We also have a Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.3 standards. And it's worth noting, like I mentioned, this is a 14-inch OLED display. Now, there is a lot to talk about this laptop. There are so many distinct features that it's impressive and overwhelming at the exact same time. So let's get into them. Starting with a quick unboxing, as you can see, the ASUS ZenBook comes in a nice fancy looking box. Once you remove the content seal and open the box, inside first and foremost, of course, you have the ZenBook itself. Remove all that protective packaging, and here it is in the flesh. But more on that in a quick minute. Past that, you'll also notice, of course, you have a standard 65-watt charging adapter. ASUS likes to keep the body completely as a single unit, so the USB-C cable is connected directly to it. And then finally, some documentation and other basic safety guides. The design of the ZenBook is something that ASUS takes great pride in. They have a thing for slim profile laptops, and this here is a prime example. Aside from having a premium build thanks to a full metallic exterior, they've really gone creative with it. For example, the top and bottom have that nice dark blue color theme going on with some design elements that give it a unique factor. You have those nice linear edges across the body with a stainless steel finish at the back. It's just so nice to look at. Of course, all that choice of material does translate into a relatively hefty weight for a 14-inch laptop at just over 3 pounds, though it's still light enough for everyday commute and carry. Now, starting with the top side, again, like I mentioned, you have a high quality metallic exterior over here. You will notice they have these nice designs in the form of like line elements going across, and it looks really nice, though I did notice it is a pretty significant fingerprint magnet, so that is something you'll have to keep in mind if you are a clean freak like I am. All the I/O ports are located on either side of this laptop. So on one side, you have the single USB-A super speed port. Right next to that, you have a heat exhaust vent. And by the way, this is the only heat exhaust vent on the entire laptop. We'll cover that in the thermal section, however. Now on the other side, you will find a fully loaded HDMI 2.1 port. You have a headphone jack, 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports, which is awesome, and then a micro SD card reader. Honestly, I/O port diversity is pretty good here. I wish that micro SD card was a full-size SD card reader for maximum compatibility, but that's just me being nitpicky at this point. The bottom side of this laptop, pretty straightforward again, so you will notice you have a very small air intake vent. And by the way, the fan is located on the extreme right corner. Again, thermal concerns I'll talk about later on. Now you do again have a fingerprint sensitive design here, and then you will notice on either corner you have a speaker grill indicating this is a bottom firing stereo speaker setup. Today's video is in partnership with Newegg. It's that time of the year where Newegg is having their second biggest sale of the year, the Fantastic 2 sale. They've got some really killer deals right now. For example, this fully loaded Intel Core i5 13600K series processor with a whopping 14 cores is going for just $285. That's a good $45 discount from the usual $330 price point. It's perfect for high-end productivity, high-end gaming, and any other demanding task you can pretty much think of. Need a motherboard to go with that? No problem. The MSI MPG Z694's motherboard comes with a LGA 1700 socket, which is perfect for 13th generation Intel processors. Its ATX form factor is great for smaller builds. It also has Intel's Wi-Fi 6E technology built right in and DDR5 technology as well. It's a super advanced motherboard at a awesome discounted price of just $200. That's a whopping $170 off its standard $370 retail price. price point. So you need some storage with that too, no problem. The next storage Japan 2TB M.2 2280 SSD with super fast 7300 megabits per second write speed and super fast 6900 megabits per second read speed is going for a puny $98, which is a pretty big $152 discount compared to its usual $250 price point. Perhaps you're looking for a desktop that's already all built for you, no problemo. The MSI gaming desktop Aegis R with Intel's 13th generation 13700F i7 processor, 16GB of DDR5 memory, and a larger-than-life 2TB SSD with NVIDIA's RTX 4070 graphics is discounted by $300, going for $1,500 right now, compared to its usual $1,800 price point. More of a portable gaming kind of person? Well, Lenovo's Legion Pro 5 16-inch laptop is perfect for your needs thanks to its 165Hz refresh rate. Additionally, it's got a powerful i7 13700HX series processor, RTX 4060 graphics with 16GB of snappy DDR5 memory, and a reasonably large 1TB SSD. Plus, its modern gaming design looks super cool, and it's going just for a mere $1,250 compared to its usual $1,720 price tag. That's a good $470 off. It's a pretty sweet deal. Perhaps you want something that doesn't break the bank just for general productivity. The MSI modern 14-inch laptop with its ultra-thin design, 11th gen i5 processor, 16GB of memory, and a reasonably large 512GB SSD is going for a mere $420, which again is a nice $110 discount compared to the usual $530 price point. The sale is live right now from October 9th all the way to October 13th, and if you're not sure what hardware you need, they have plenty of resources on newegg.com like a PC builder tool, a trade-in program, and even a laptop finder. So find the best possible deal right now, skip the line, skip the last minute shopping, and make your perfect computer at Newegg. As soon as you unfold this laptop, you are presented with an equally stunning inner chassis. That dark blue color just adds so much personality. You have a decent amount of palm rest space given this is just a 14-inch laptop. Now it's also worth noting at the dead center is where the magic happens, because you have a high quality glass surface finish trackpad with a lot of surface real estate. Tapping on it or clicking on it feels like just tapping on thin ice. It's so tactile, well calibrated, and just a great experience overall. And as an additional quality of life feature, they also of course have the digital or touch sensitive number pad that takes up the entire trackpad at the press of a hotkey. Really cool feature. ASUS actually really cares about their keyboard quality, and the ZenBook is a prime example of that. You have nice large keycaps that are well labeled and easy to read. Additionally, the keyboard is of course fully backlit with multiple lighting settings, and the layout for the most part is pretty respectable, except for those arrow keys which are ridiculously compressed for no good reason. Now, the power button does double as a built-in fingerprint sensor for those of you who might want that feature. And then as far as the typing experience goes, you have a decent degree of tactility here and also good key travel. It's not the most high quality typing experience I've used on a 14-inch laptop, but it's definitely up there with the likes of Lenovo's IdeaPad series and overall provides for a pretty comfortable typing experience. Directly past the keyboard is where we have the hinge mechanism, and if I'm being honest, it does have a good degree of wobble, which can be a little concerning and an outright nuisance when you're typing fast. With that said though, as long as you take general caution, it should be okay. Now the display fitting is nice and modern, so you'll notice you have a thin chin at the bottom, a little bit of branding to go there, and then you have nice narrow bezels to provide maximum screen immersion. And then at the very top, of course, you do have a relatively small forehead, at the center of which you have a high quality full HD webcam, and ASUS has really tuned this thing pretty well because it does exceptionally well in mid to low light settings. Let's talk about the display quality. Keeping in mind this is the non 2-in-1 variant of this laptop, you get a high quality OLED panel with a 2.8K resolution, which translates into a healthy 16:10 aspect ratio and a snappy 90Hz refresh rate. Additionally, you have a maximum brightness of 400 nits, but that does peak with HDR at up to 550 nits. You do have a glossy display, but the high brightness does compensate for it, and then a 0.2 millisecond response rate. Furthermore, you do have built-in touch captivity, but it is worth noting if that's a serious consideration for you, you might want to opt for the 2-in-1 variant of this laptop. Now, my favorite part is that 100% DCI P3 color gamut, which means you get fantastic color reproduction. Everything looks so vibrant and lifelike on this display. If you're working in a color sensitive area where, for example, you do photo or video editing, you will really appreciate the display at a macro and micro level. Quick recap in terms of specifications, we've got the i7-1360P series processor. We also have 16 gigabytes of LPDDR5 memory, and then Intel's integrated Iris Xe graphics. Now, this translates into great performance for day-to-day activities like web browsing, watching this YouTube video, for example, or doing general work productivity. When you push the laptop further by doing more demanding activities like programming, for example, or even 3D animations on programs like Blender, to a good extent, the laptop does a pretty good job, though you will run into the occasional thermal throttling, which can result in brief performance stutters, if you will. Now, when you really push it further by doing video editing, the performance is interesting. So as far as full HD editing goes, you'll be just fine. There's very little frame drops. It does a great job at processing all that, multi-layer, whatnot. However, the minute you go to 4K video editing, you start noticing significant frame drops periodically, and this is not because the laptop isn't powerful enough, but simply because you've got a very small body here, and it just can't cool itself off fast enough, which results in thermal throttling, which results in dropped frames, for example. Gaming performance was actually decent for a productivity laptop, so optimized games like Fortnite can actually run at a healthy 60 plus frames per second non-stop at low to medium settings and not thermal throttle, which means you actually can do some degree of casual gaming in a fairly moderate capacity here. Now, of course, this will vary depending on the game you're playing, but it's good to know that you do have functionality there. Let's talk about thermals. One of the downsides of cramming so much hardware in such a slim body is a laptop is inevitably going to run hot, especially with 13th gen Intel hardware and a P-series chip. So under unrealistic peak loads, we were able to hit a maximum surface temperature of 46 degrees, which is pretty hot. Now, even more realistic sustained loads will still yield you around the 40 degrees Celsius mark, which is definitely on the warmer side, though it shouldn't have any implications for the hardware in the long term, as long as you're not hitting those peak temperatures. Even fan noise can hit a pretty high 50 decibels very frequently, mind you, because again, you don't have a lot of cooling going on thanks to those extremely narrow and limited cooling vents, and a very small fan at that, which means this laptop spends a lot of time trying to keep itself running cool. In terms of upgradability, I've got good news and bad news. The good news is that you can upgrade the M.2 SSD and also the WLAN card. However, the bad news is that you cannot upgrade the RAM. It is entirely soldered, so whatever you get is what you're stuck with. You have a 75 watt-hour battery here, which translates into about 7.5 hours of real-world usage. Of course, it will vary depending on what you're doing. Now, in terms of the sound quality, like I mentioned, you have a bottom-firing stereo speaker setup here, and the sound quality is good, but not necessarily great. It's comparable to the likes of the HP Envy in a 14-inch form factor. Here's a quick sound test for reference.
This is my fight, a small cage, but a big height. All's at stake, it's my time to shine. Yeah, I'ma train hard, mistakes turn into learned scars. To build a brickyard, it's one by one, each bar. So build it tall, build it strong, build it large. And build a base first, so reliable, you've reached the stars. Lights so bright, I can feel the rays. My lungs feel...
You can expect to pay around $1,100 for the configuration of the ZenBook that we reviewed today. Now, all things considered, look, this is very much a premium laptop, hence the price. However, in return, you are getting exceptional build quality with a very prestigious look. This is a high-end productivity laptop, and it has a lot to show for it. You have a great trackpad, a good keyboard, and an extremely superior OLED display, which should please people who are in color-sensitive activities and anyone who's just looking for a nice nice crisp looking display, plus you have touch functionality as an added bonus. Now you'll also appreciate the fact that ASUS doesn't cheap out on the internals. You're getting a lot of powerful hardware over here. Of course, the downside of all that is that you do have thermal implications which can periodically affect performance and also other elements of the laptop. I definitely think there is some room for improvement in that regard, but other than that, this is really a pretty nice laptop, and as long as you're not going to be pushing this laptop to extreme limits by doing very demanding activities beyond general productivity, you can expect a nice high quality premium experience. Let me know what you think of the ZenBook 14 OLED, and if you're going to be getting one, or if you have one, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed the content, make sure you hit that like button and sub to this channel. It genuinely helps me grow and means the world to me. Catch you in the next one.